in investment promotion strategies by bringing together African IPAs, regional economic communities, international organizations, and of course, local Egyptian investors. Let me take this opportunity to give you a brief update on some of the key developments in the operationalization and implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We now have 38 countries who are state parties to the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, meaning that these countries have accepted the legal obligations, the political obligations of boosting intra-Africa trade, reducing barriers to intra-Africa trade, and of course, reducing barriers to intra-Africa investment. I am particularly encouraged that as I travel across the length and breadth of this continent, all leaders that I have the honor to meet express to me their full commitment to the AFCFTA, and therefore I know that in due course, all 55 members of the African Union shall indeed ratify the agreement establishing the AFCFTA. I'm also optimistic about phase 2 of the negotiations, which will enable us to achieve deeper integration on investment, intellectual property rights, digital trade, competition policy, and women and youth in trade. However, we still have some outstanding progress to conclude in the phase 1 of the negotiations to facilitate trade, especially trade in goods and services, and to position Africa on enhanced intra-Africa trade in the next 10 years. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, facilitating investments in the continent is crucial to the development of Africa. This has led the African Union, regional economic communities, and AU member states to adopt investment instruments in recent years with the aim of enhancing cooperation and harmonization in the area of inter- and intra-Africa investment. These instruments seek to combine the objectives of attracting investors and achieving sustainable development for the African continent. Investment facilitation plays an essential role in expansion of productive capacity, in growth, development, and sustainability. The AFCFTA provides the essential benefits of a free trade area, that is to say, a larger market, economies of scale, enhanced scope, and market integration. All of this should be attractive to investment, both intra-Africa and global sources of investment, and is essential for post-COVID reconstruction and transformation, building resilience for the African continent. The AFCFTA Protocol on Investment will be an overarching instrument which will complement regional investment agreements and national investment laws for the purpose of enhancing inter- and intra-Africa investment facilitation. The AFCFTA Protocol on Investment will promote, facilitate, and protect sustainable investments between African states by creating a modern and coherent legal framework that provides for a sound intra-Africa investment climate. Specifically, the protocol will promote, facilitate, and stimulate intra-Africa investment flows through better harmonization and coordination of investment instruments. Effective investment facilitation policies are key to Africa's economic recovery post-COVID-19. One of the main constraints to boosting inter- and intra-Africa investment has been fragmentation and lack of harmonization of the investment regime on our continent. Investment facilitation is not only about making it easier for investors to invest, which is important, it is also about channeling investment into sustainable, productive sectors of our economies to create jobs and to advance national development objectives of each country on the African continent. In the context of the AFCFTA Protocol on Investment, the immediate challenge is therefore to improve the business climate by making investment facilitation more efficient, to to achieve ease of doing business and economic growth, which we know are correlated and are able to position countries for growth and development. The other challenge is to establish a coherent continental investment promotion and facilitation framework, complementing national and efforts at regional level. In addition to establishing the appropriate investment framework at continental level through the AFCFTA Protocol on Investment, we are also focusing on investment in trade facilitating digital infrastructure. With our strategic partner, Afreximbank, we're in the process of establishing a Pan-African payments and settlement platform that will enable trade in local currency, thereby reducing the cost of currency convertibility that is associated with trade across borders. The Pan-African payments and settlement platform will facilitate intra-regional payments and will reduce payments transaction costs by up to $5 billion per year, thus significantly boosting intra-Africa trade. Let me conclude, Madam Director, by once again congratulating the government of Egypt for convening this event, and I wish all of us fruitful deliberations in the next few days. Thank you.
أشكرك سيدي على هذه الكلمة. Thank you, sir, for this speech. And now we will give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Sameh Shoukry, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Egypt. The floor is yours. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, His Excellency Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, Prime Minister, His Excellencies, the CEO of GAFI, the heads of IPAs from Africa, all the representatives of private sector. It's a pleasure today to participate with you in the opening of the first edition of the heads of IPAs in Africa as a platform for all the investment responsibles, economic blocks, regional blocks, and the Commission of the African Union and private sector. Furthermore, the institutions and the finance mechanism, African finance mechanisms, which enhances the exchange of expertise between stakeholders in the field of investment in the continent. So the timing of this first edition really comes in a very important time in light of what our continent is facing of economic challenges because of the negative consequences of COVID-19, and which our countries have been inflicted by them more than others. Our dear continent is rich with natural resources and human resources, which can represent with all garnered efforts an attractive market for foreign for FDIs. They have great capacities to increase economic growth and encourage citizens to have economic growth and encourage citizens to invest, which will bridge the gap between the savings and investments, and which is a common problem in developing countries. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me, while we are addressing the integration for growth as a slogan for this forum, to refer to this following points. First, this forum comes as a complementation for our states to complementing the efforts of all states, where Egypt has paid relentless efforts, where President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, since he took the presidency of African Union in 2019 until today, to create a conducive environment to attract more FDIs and to work on the integration of Africa. where we are aspiring to have this as a goal. Also, the President has a clear vision about the connection between sustainable development to support peace and stability in Africa. From the principle of there is no development without peace and there is no peace without stability. That's why Egypt hosted the African Union Center for the reconstruction after conflicts. Also, he inaugurated the Aswan Center to have relations of peace, to be a real platform for consultations about challenges that impedes the investment promotion of infrastructure in Africa. And comes on the top of it the climate change and the impact on food security, peace and security, also the threats of organized crime and also the exacerbation of the phenomena of irregular migration and the high number of refugees and displaced people. Second, through the past years, the President exerted a lot of efforts to cooperate with African countries to enhance the integration agenda of the continent. And this helped to have the AFCTFA agreement in force. This was an inauguration for a new phase for the coordination of the new efforts to promote the the African intertrade, and also to resolve any issues challenging the trade between the African countries. Third, the efforts of integration would not be complete unless we have a comprehensive infrastructure to connect the African countries to facilitate trade and promote investments between African countries. And in the light of the President working on the file of Africa and the reconstruction of Africa, he supported the construction of Cairo, Cape Town, and also the river connection between Victoria Lake to Alexandria. Also, we are working to cooperate in the construction of Rayari Dam, which is a model that we can replicate in other countries. The Egyptian companies are working according to the international standards because Egypt believes that investing the African capitals is a priority in African countries. Fourth, the challenges associated to the pandemic imposed that we should count on investment in the infrastructure and the health sectors, in addition to the exchange of health expertise and work on the vaccines of COVID-19. Also to support the African countries in this regard, which enables all African countries to have an efficient countering to these challenges in the future. In this regard, the President ordered to start manufacturing the vaccines of COVID-19, in addition to his declaration to donate $4 billion to the African Union Fund to mitigate the consequences of the pandemic in Africa. Fifth, it's important to continue the serious dialogue with the partners of development and the finance agencies to get the support that the African countries need in this phase. And this had been reiterated by His Excellency in the summit of supporting African economies, which has been hosted in Paris last May, where he reiterated that we should support the efforts of the governments in their economic reforms, aiming to garner foreign and local investments. Also to improve the infrastructures so that they can restore the economic growth figures before the pandemic, and to reach the aimed economic growth that will help us to achieve the goals of 2030 and the agenda of African Union 2063. Also, he reiterated the importance of cooperation to encourage the private sector in Africa as a main partner in the development efforts, and also to continue the support through the legislations and regulations and finance facilitations to play this role. Seventh, the interconnection between the finance and the investment in Africa is aiming to fulfill the agenda of 2063 and imposes on us to garner all efforts in the continent, whether on the governmental level through supporting the political commitment or through making all the stakeholders aware of their roles. To conclude, at this time where we are opening the first edition of the Heads of IPAs in Africa, I should reiterate that Egypt is so keen to cooperate with all African countries in a framework of cooperation that allows the expertise exchange and focuses on the mutual respect. And I hope this forum all success and constructive discussions where the outputs of this forum will enhance the intra-trade in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Minister, honorable participants. It's a pleasure for us to start the signature of two memorandums of understanding between GAFI, the General Authority for Investment and Free Zones, and the African investment agencies. The aim is to encourage exchanges and cooperation in establishing new opportunities for cooperation by development of operational and procedural reforms, as well as exchanges of experience and joint cooperation and training. First, the Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of International Cooperation between Sudan and signed by Mr. Head of Investment and International Cooperation in the Republic of Sudan. He is represented by the Egyptian